My name is Harold, and I survived the Grey Tower, a hulking, soulless office building squatting on the edge of town. Its concrete facade is unremarkable, but its walls pulse with something alive, something wrong. For 20 years, I toiled in its fluorescent-lit maze, feeling its gaze on me, hearing its whispers in the dark. I escaped, or so I thought. The tower never lets go. These are the stories of those it claimed: Michael, James, Ethan. Their screams still echo in my dreams. Listen closely, because the tower is always listening too. Michael was 28, an ordinary man trapped in the grind of the Grey Tower's consulting firm. His days blurred into a monotony of filing papers, answering endless calls, and sitting through meetings that drained his soul. The office was a labyrinth of gray cubicles, each one identical, their edges softened by years of neglect. The windows, smeared with grime, filtered the outside world into a dull haze, as if the tower refused to let it in. The fluorescent lights buzzed incessantly, a chorus of dying flies that grated on Michael's nerves. One September afternoon, the air grew thick with an unspoken dread. The sky outside was a bruised gray, and the office felt colder, as if the tower itself were holding its breath. Michael's boss, Mr. Carter, summoned everyone for an urgent meeting. His voice cracked as he spoke of cyber attacks crippling rival companies, his hands trembling as he clutched his notes. Michael's attention drifted to the parking lot below. A figure stood there, shrouded in a hooded jacket, his face hidden in shadow. He stared up at the tower, his posture rigid, his gaze piercing. Michael's stomach twisted. There was something predatory in the way the man stood, as if he were marking the building as prey. The meeting dragged on, but the stranger's presence lingered in Michael's mind. As he returned to his desk, a hot, rancid breath grazed his neck. He spun around, heart lurching. The man from the lot was there, inside the office, his eyes glinting like polished obsidian. "I know what your company hides," he rasped, his voice a low growl that seemed to vibrate in the walls. "Help me, or I'll tear it all apart." Michael's pulse hammered as he glimpsed the dull gleam of a pistol beneath the man's jacket. The air grew heavy, the cubicles closing in like a trap. Before Michael could speak, a deafening gunshot roared from downstairs. Screams erupted, papers flew, and the office dissolved into chaos. The stranger melted into the crowd, his shadow flickering under the stuttering lights. Michael staggered toward the stairs, his legs leaden. At the elevator he froze. Mr. Carter stood there, his face ashen, a smoking gun trembling in his hand. At his feet lay a body, an intruder, the police later said, a hacker tied to a criminal syndicate. Blood pooled on the tile, its edges seeping into the cracks like roots. Michael tried to move on, but the tower wouldn't let him forget. At night, he'd hear footsteps in empty halls, their rhythm uneven, as if something limped just out of sight. Shadows danced in corners, their shapes too sharp, too alive. In his dreams, the stranger's face loomed, his whisper coiling around Michael's mind. "The tower knows your secrets." He began to notice the walls, how they seemed to shift when no one was looking, how the corridors stretched just a little too long. The tower was watching, and it was hungry. James was the perfect employee, always staying late in the Grey Tower, his desk a fortress of neatly stacked papers. At 11 p.m., the office was a mausoleum, its white walls glowing faintly under sickly blue fluorescence. The silence was suffocating, broken only by the clock's relentless ticking and the vending machine's hum. A mechanical heartbeat that seemed to pulse through the floor. The air smelled of stale coffee and something acrid, like burnt wires, though no one could ever find the source. He was reviewing reports when a dull thud echoed from the far end of the floor, like a book falling from a shelf. His heart stuttered. The office was empty, or it should have been. He stood, his chair creaking in protest, and peered into the darkness. The cubicles loomed like headstones, their edges blurred in the dim light. Another sound followed, a faint scrape like nails dragging across plaster. James's mouth went dry, but he forced himself to move, his footsteps muffled by the threadbare carpet. The corridor seemed to stretch, its walls curving inward as if to swallow him. The air grew denser, heavy with the scent of mildew and decay, though the office was always pristine. At the archive room, the door hung ajar, a sliver of sickly yellow light leaking out. James's hand trembled as he pushed it open, his phone's flashlight slicing through the gloom. Rows of shelves stretched into the darkness, their contents shrouded in dust. A whisper slithered through the air, low and guttural, as if the room were exhaling a secret. Then he saw it, a shape in the shadows, its outline flickering like static on an old TV. Two red eyes burned within, unblinking, their glow cutting through the dark like twin wounds. James's scream lodged in his throat as the figure drifted closer, its form dissolving into mist at the edges. Its presence was wrong, as if it didn't belong to this world, or as if he didn't. "Who are you?" he choked, his back pressed against the cold metal of a shelf. The figure's mouth opened, releasing a sound like wind howling through a broken window. The lights blazed on. Miss Larson, his boss, stood in the doorway, her face a mask of stern concern. Behind her, the intern and receptionist gaped, their eyes wide. The archive was empty, its shelves orderly, the air sterile. "Are you okay, James?" Miss Larson asked, but her voice carried an edge, as if she knew something he didn't. James's legs buckled, his mind reeling. Had it been real? The whispers didn't stop. They followed him, faint but relentless, seeping from the walls, the floor, the ceiling. The archive door began to creak open at night, just a fraction, though no one admitted to touching it. James noticed the lights flickering more often, their rhythm matching his pulse. The tower was alive, and it had seen him. It wanted him to stay. Ethan was a tough guy, a no-nonsense accountant who scoffed at ghost stories. But the gray tower wore him down. At midnight, the 7th floor was a wasteland of faded cubicles and ancient computers, their screens casting a sickly green glow. The neon lights buzzed, flickering as if on the verge of collapse. The air was thick, heavy with the weight of 1,000 forgotten hours. He was alone, or so he thought. A shadow darted past his cubicle, too fast, too angular to be human. His heart slammed against his ribs, but he forced a laugh. "Just tired," he muttered, rubbing his eyes. Then he heard it, a rasp, like air escaping a punctured lung, coming from the dark. Ethan stood, his chair scraping the floor, and ventured into the maze. The carpet was stained, its patterns swirling like faces when he looked too long. In a corner he saw it, a figure hunched and wrong, its limbs unnaturally long, its face a void. Ethan recognized it. Mr. Daniels, a coworker who'd retired years ago, nicknamed Hollow Eyes for his lifeless stare. But this wasn't Daniels. Its eyes were black pits, swallowing light, and its mouth hung open, leaking a wail that clawed at Ethan's sanity. It lurched forward, its movements jerky, as if pulled by invisible strings. Ethan stumbled back, crashing into a chair. More figures emerged, other employees, their faces pale, their eyes empty. They moved as one, their whispers merging into a chorus of despair. "Stay," they hissed, their voices echoing inside his skull. "The tower needs you." Ethan's scream died as the walls pulsed, the air choking him with the weight of unseen eyes. The corridor twisted, looping back on itself, trapping him in a nightmare maze. The figures closed in, their hands cold as they brushed his skin. Ethan's mind fractured as he realized the truth. The tower was alive, a predator that fed on those who gave it their lives. It had claimed Daniels, the others, and now it wanted him. The air grew colder, the lights dimming until only the figure's eyes glowed, black and endless. Ethan's last thought was of the tower's walls, closing like a coffin. I left the gray tower, but it never left me. I see it in my dreams. Its windows like eyes, its doors like mouths, always open, always hungry. Michael, James, Ethan, they're still there, their souls woven into its concrete veins. If you work in a place like that, listen for the whispers, feel the weight in the air. Run before it claims you too. The tower is patient, it waits.